Down the world's darkest highways into the vast unknown, yours truly, David Barnabas Spector, leads you on a unique journey into the minds of professional wrestlers, paranormal investigators, and an array of human and inhuman oddities. This is Radio Dark. And on this episode, we are joined by an individual that is all too familiar with the darker side of life. He's a gentleman that I have had the pleasure of managing over the past year plus. He is the Prophet of Pain, and one of my best friends in and outside of the wrestling industry. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I welcome Scotty Amos to Radio Dark. Scotty, thank you so much for joining here today, my friend.
I appreciate you, David. How you been, man?
I have been trying to stay productive, but it's been a little challenging as of late. I have to admit that, even my cold, dark heart, Scotty Amos, is longing for the days of being involved in the wrestling industry, and as much as I begrudgingly have to say it, I think that I actually, in a very teeny, tiny, minuscule, microscopic way, I might actually miss some of the FGW fans.
No, you're getting soft on me.
No, man, don't tell them, man. Don't tell them. Don't tell them. But listen, man, I really appreciate you joining me. Absolutely, man. Without question, Amos, you have been one of the key focal points in the legacy of Future Great Wrestling from day one. You've been a huge part of Darkness Worldwide since its inception, which is exactly why I wanted to have you on the program so that we can delve a little further into who exactly you are, because there's a lot of question marks. A lot of times when you come up in conversation with people in and out of the business, the question is always, what exactly is Scotty Amos all about? What exactly is the Prophet of Pain? What does that mean? So knowing you personally, I know you have an interest in things such as the paranormal, the darker arts. If you would be so kind, please elaborate to our listeners a little more about what makes Scotty Amos tick, just some of the things that are of interest to you.
Well, it all started as a kid, and that's where Amos himself began to format. I was raised, by a single mother. She was a high priestess Wiccan. Never forced it upon me. Never, forced any kind of the religious, down my throat, so to speak. So she, pretty much gave me, free will to do what I want and kind of, let me find who I was as a person. Ever since I was a little kid, I kind of always been the goofy one to have dreams, wake up, and tell my mom, what I dreamt about, and, sure shit not, whether it be days, weeks, months on down the road, that would come forth. And that's kind of, led me into the person I am today, even, cracking into wrestling. It was actually back in April of 2018. I had a dream one Saturday night, woke up the following Sunday morning, and I reached out to one of my brother's friends, Denham Blevins from Battle on the Border, and pretty much had a wild hair at my head. I was like, hey, man, I know that you're involved in this wrestling thing. I reached out and asked him if he knew anybody that trained, or if he could point me in the direction. And he actually got me involved with Cody Hawk. And that following Monday, I found myself sitting out there in Hamilton at the old warehouse, walking in for the first time. It was actually April 25th of 2018. And, well, I could be wrong on the date, but when I walked in there, I mean, that's never kind of looked back at it. As far as the paranormal, like I said, with my mom being the high priestess Wiccan, there's a lot of kids had their tops that they played with. I had spirit cards, tarot decks, and that's kind of stuck with me, ever since a little kid. And at the present day, you kind of see everything from a different point of view, if you would. I kind of deal with the energy, seeing everything like spirit of karma. I mean, some might say that I'm weaved a little bit different than others, but that's how, I don't know. I think it's pretty bland, but that's pretty much who I am.
I mean, and a lot of that is extremely interesting to me, and I'm sure that a lot of listeners will find that interesting as well, Scotty. So, it's interesting when you point out, I think that's the reason why you and I get along, I'd say fairly well, is because, we certainly are not mirror images of each other, but there's certain aspects of your personality that I certainly can relate to and understand. One of them is when you just mentioned about having, visions, seeing things, and then having them come to fruition, later on down the road. I've always chalked that up to deja vu, but that's something that I've encountered and seen and felt and dealt with for, since I was a little boy. So, when you're younger, it's kind of hard to understand or explain it, but as the years go by, it's undeniable when you have these images, and at the time they make absolutely no sense. And then 6 months, 8 months, a year down the road, then all of a sudden they come to actualization, and there they appear right in front of your very eyes. And it's at that moment that you just, I still am in awe of the phenomenon, but it's happened so many times now that, it's almost like a tip of the hat to the universe to in my mind, it's letting me know that whatever path that I'm supposed to be on, that I'm on that right path. But, beyond that point, you and I, and on the last episode of Radio Dark, I had my longtime friend Steve Cruz on, and you were also a part of our expedition to Bobby Mackey's in Wilder, Kentucky, and the experiences you had while we were there. Like, everybody had some unique experiences. I would dare say even those that joined us that really don't necessarily believe in the paranormal or ghost activity or whatever the case may be, even they felt something when we were in that building. And I know that you absolutely sensed and felt some very strong emotions and some very strong sensations. I did to a very small degree. Like I said on the last episode with Steve, I hadn't felt the way I felt in that building since I left upstate New York, where there were times where I had interesting encounters with things that perhaps are not easily explained. But beyond that point, I truly believe that people are vibrational beings.
Oh, absolutely.
We all operate on certain frequencies, and again, with your life experiences, the things you've gone through, you are. It may seem like everyday commonplace to you, but you are operating on a different frequency than a lot of folks out there. I'm not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just saying it is. And, that's something that I have had to come to terms with myself over the years, is that, I as well feel like I operate on a slightly different frequency than a lot of individuals that I encounter day after day. Sometimes that, translates into being of a superior intellect or a superior ability to think and to rationalize, to negotiate for my clientele and darkness worldwide. It's just simply being able to look at things realistically and objectively, perhaps to see things that the common everyday Joe and Joanne do not see. But so as that I don't take up the entire episode waxing philosophic about these particular scenarios and situations, Scotty, let's continue to talk about your career. You were trained by Cody Hawk, the same Cody Hawk that has trained individuals such as the current AEW and former WWE World Heavyweight Champion Jon Moxley, formerly known as Dean Ambrose, the former Impact Wrestling World Champion Sami Callihan, and when I first met you, it was during a seminar by another one of Cody Hawk's revered trainees, that being, I believe he was Impact Champion at one point. I know he's currently one half of the NWA Tag Team Champions, that being Eli Drake. But if you would, talk a little bit more about your experiences training with perhaps one of the number one trainers throughout the entire world in Cody Hawk.
I tell you what, Cody Hawk, dude's fucking phenomenal. From a training standpoint, the psychology the man provides is second to none. The conditioning the man has is second to none. Where he's been, who he's trained, the guy is as modest as they come, but don't let your guard down. You're stepping into the ring. You're going to have respect for the business, or the guy's going to eat you alive, flat out. Sometimes I sit back and, just think, being put in a situation to actually train underneath the man known as Cody Hawk, just some of the people that, given being trained by him, we've had Moxley come through, Sammy's came through, Eli Drake, Pepper Parks, hell, we just had Poffo in there. I don't know. I'm blessed, and sometimes I see myself kind of taking advantage, and I got to snap myself back to reality to, given that the stars are aligned, and, I'm underneath the dude's wing. I couldn't ask for a better trainer.
Most definitely. I fully admit that, whatever I can do from a professional wrestling standpoint, I owe all of that to Cody Hawk. Even if he and I have not always seen eye to eye, even if I think he has terrible taste in women, I still have the utmost respect for that man. Oh, and we'll talk more about that here in a little bit. But I have nothing but respect for Cody Hawk in regards to being a world-class trainer. As a matter of fact, if it was not for Cody's professionalism, his demeanor, his patience, his overall ability, I don't know if I would have even come close to achieving the things that I've been able to achieve in the wrestling industry. And I'll dare say that the match that I had with William Wolf at Origins 2 for Future Great Wrestling, that match would not have been possible without Cody Hawk's training and tutelage. And honestly, to give credit where it's absolutely due, you definitely had a part in that too, in getting me ready. And I truly appreciate that. I'll say that here publicly that I appreciate your help. And I've tried to help you on my side of things as much as I can. And the reason why, even though sometimes you and I have been on a little bit of a bumpy road together, we've never fully separated in regards to being brothers and friends, business partners, etc. Because we do for one another. We're always there, no matter what. Even though...
brothers are going to fight, man.
Exactly.
That's only healthy.
Exactly, yes, sir, most definitely. So, talking about...
Hey, don't steal from me. It'll be good.